The irresistible power of Scorpio, mystery and fearlessness. Why you will never forget a Scorpio. There are zodiac signs you admire, and then there are signs you never forget. Scorpio belongs to the latter. Even if you've only met a Scorpio once in your life, something about them lingers. It could be the intensity in their eyes, the way they speak like they already know your secrets, or the mystery they carry like a second skin. But the truth is, Scorpios don't need to try to be powerful. They are power, unapologetically, naturally, irrevocably. In this series, we'll uncover 30 powerful reasons why Scorpio is unlike any other sign in the zodiac. But more than just listing traits, we'll go deeper into their psychology, into their shadows, and into the stories that make their power unforgettable. So let's begin with two of the most compelling reasons why Scorpio's energy is both magnetic and unstoppable. New Moon Reason 1. Scorpio's mysterious magnetism. Some people attract attention with loud laughter, flamboyant clothes, or bold gestures. Scorpios do it in silence. There's something hauntingly magnetic about a Scorpio. You notice them across the room, not because they say much, but because their energy is undeniable. It's as if they're always holding a secret, and you can't help but want to know what it is. Their mystery isn't a performance, it's real. Scorpio doesn't reveal themselves easily. In a world obsessed with overexposure, their privacy is seductive. Their aura says, "There's more to me than you'll ever know." I remember a story told by a woman who met a Scorpio man during a volunteer trip in Nepal. He barely spoke, only offered polite smiles. But one evening, when a sick child collapsed in front of everyone, he stepped forward, carried the boy in his arms, and calmly coordinated an emergency response like he had done it 100 times. After that, no one could stop talking about him, not because of his words, but because of the gravity he carried. Scorpio's silence is not emptiness. It's a force that pulls people in without trying, a force that commands attention without asking for it. And that is why they're unforgettable. Fire Reason 2. Their fearless relationship with darkness. While many people run from darkness, be it trauma, secrets, or shadow parts, Scorpios walk straight into it. Not out of recklessness, but because they are built to survive the underworld of life. This sign is ruled by Pluto, the planet of death, rebirth, and transformation. Scorpio knows that light means nothing if you haven't faced the dark. Think about the people you admire the most. Not the ones who had it easy, but the ones who fell and rose again. That's the Scorpio path. There's a man I once counseled who lost his job, his marriage, and his house in the span of a year. He was a Scorpio, but instead of falling apart, he told me, "I've lost everything before. This is just another rebirth." And 6 months later, he started a crisis recovery nonprofit, helping others rise from rock bottom. Scorpio doesn't just endure the storm. They become it. They aren't afraid to sit with grief. They don't flinch at betrayal. They can handle the truth when others lie to themselves. This depth gives them a kind of wisdom most people only learn too late. And in this world, where shallow smiles and fast fixes dominate, Scorpio's willingness to face the darkness makes them not just powerful, but rare. Waterwave Reason 3. Emotional radar like no other. Some people listen with their ears. Scorpios listen with their soul. While the world is busy reacting to words, Scorpio has already tuned into the vibrations behind those words, the hesitation in your breath, the sudden flicker of discomfort in your eyes, the shift in your posture that no one else noticed. It's almost supernatural, but it's not magic. It's awareness, honed through years of feeling too much in a world that often feels too numb. What makes Scorpio's emotional radar so powerful is their natural discomfort with superficiality. They're allergic to small talk. When a Scorpio asks how you are, they don't want, "I'm fine." They want the truth, the whole, unfiltered, messy truth. Not because they're nosy, but because they feel your truth even when you're too afraid to speak it. I once met a Scorpio therapist, Dr. Lena, who said something that still lingers in my mind. "I don't just listen to trauma. I sit inside it with them. That's where healing begins." That's the Scorpio way. They don't stand outside your pain offering polite advice. They step inside it with you, without fear, because they've lived their own storms. And somehow, they carry your burden without judgment. There was a young man, let's call him Ethan, who had been struggling with depression for years but kept it hidden behind a charming, confident mask. Everyone believed he was fine. Everyone except his Scorpio friend, Maya. She would say, "There's something behind your smile." I don't know what it is, but I see it. Eventually, Ethan broke down and admitted he had contemplated ending his life multiple times. Maya didn't panic. She didn't offer cliches. She simply stayed. And over time, her presence gave him the strength to seek help. He credits her emotional intuition as the lifeline that saved him. This depth of emotional perception isn't just a trait, it's a sacred responsibility. Scorpios often carry the emotional weight of others without anyone noticing. They're the friend you call at 2 a.m., the sibling who shows up without being asked, the stranger who senses your sadness and offers a silent, grounding presence. From a Buddhist perspective, this emotional radar aligns with the principle of karuna, compassion born from understanding suffering. True compassion isn't sympathy. It's the ability to feel with, not just for. Scorpios don't pity you. They walk with you through fire because they've been burned too. This gift, however, comes with a price. Constantly tuning into others' emotions can be draining. It's why many Scorpios crave solitude. They need to retreat and purify themselves from the emotional debris they absorb. But when they return, they come back wiser, sharper, and more ready than ever to support those they love. So if a Scorpio tells you something's off, believe them. They're not guessing. They're sensing what's already true beneath the surface. Shield reason 4, the silent power of protection. Not all warriors wear armor. Some wear silence. And Scorpio wears it better than anyone. In a world that rewards flashy declarations and visible acts of loyalty, Scorpio protects in a way that few notice, but everyone feels. Their love is not theatrical, it's strategic. Their care isn't loud, it's layered. But when they decide that you are one of theirs, you have a silent guardian for life. Let me share the story of Natalie, a Scorpio woman who had a younger sister going through a toxic relationship. The sister, like many victims, couldn't see the red flags. But Natalie did. She never confronted the boyfriend openly. That would push her sister further into denial. Instead, she started documenting incidents, creating backups of her sister's messages, and slowly planted seeds of awareness. Then, when the breakup finally happened, and the man began threatening legal action, Natalie pulled out a perfectly organized archive of evidence. Calmly, quietly, without ever saying, "I told you so." That is Scorpio protection in action. Not reactive, not impulsive, but precise, prepared, and powerful. There's a Buddhist term called apaya, which means skillful means. It refers to the compassionate strategy of helping others in the way they need most, even if they don't realize it at the time. Scorpio embodies this. They don't just jump in to save you, they understand how, when, and in what form you need saving. And let's not forget, this protection extends not only to people but also to truth. Scorpios are ruthless truth keepers. If you lie about someone they love, they won't fight with fists. They'll dismantle your credibility with evidence, clarity, and unwavering resolve. There's no storm more terrifying than a Scorpio fighting for someone else's dignity. But their protective energy isn't always heavy. Sometimes it's as simple as sending a text that says, "I had a feeling you might be overwhelmed today. I'm here if you need me." Or showing up at your door with soup when no one else knew you were sick. They feel your unspoken needs and meet them. The beauty of their silent protection is that it doesn't seek recognition. Scorpios are not protectors because they want applause. They do it because loyalty lives in their bones. Because love, to a Scorpio, means standing in front of the bullet even if no one sees it coming. Chess pawn reason 5, the master strategist, always 5 steps ahead. You've probably heard the phrase, never play chess with a Scorpio. It's not just metaphorical, it's prophetic. Scorpios are natural-born strategists. Unlike impulsive signs who act on instinct or desire, Scorpio sees life like a battlefield, and every move is calculated. They observe, analyze, and anticipate your next 5 steps before you even take one. Their mind is always working, not in scattered chaos, but in layered silence. They're the people who walk into a room and read the entire dynamic before saying a word. They remember what you said 6 months ago and what you didn't say. They connect dots others miss. While most people react emotionally or socially, Scorpios respond with precision. I once worked with a Scorpio named Darius who managed a company division that was falling apart. While others scrambled to save face, he quietly began collecting data, analyzing patterns, staff behavior, financial leakage. He said nothing for 3 weeks. Then, in one board meeting, he presented a complete turnaround plan. Every flaw exposed, every risk anticipated, every outcome mapped out. It wasn't just impressive, it was surgical. That's Scorpio intelligence. But what truly makes it powerful is its foundation. observation plus emotional intuition plus fearless decision-making. Most people have one or two. Scorpio has all three. They can look you in the eye, know you're lying, and smile because they've already planned their next move. And unlike other smart signs, Scorpio doesn't need to show off. Their brilliance is quiet, deadly, and effective. In Buddhism, there's a teaching known as Tian Chuan, insight meditation, which refers to watching life with focused awareness. Not judging, not reacting, just observing deeply. Scorpio's strategic mind is very much like this. They watch everything, then act with purpose. They don't rush, because they know true power doesn't chase, it prepares. That's why, when Scorpio strikes, it feels like destiny. But in truth, it was always planned. Direct at reason 6. Unshakable focus, obsession that becomes power. What scares people most about Scorpio is not their anger. It's their focus. When a Scorpio sets their mind to something, whether it's a goal, a person, or a purpose, they lock in like a heat-seeking missile. No distraction, no delay, no detour. They don't just want something. They become it. This obsessive focus can look intimidating. To those on the outside, it may seem unhealthy or even frightening. But for Scorpio, obsession is fuel. They dive deep, learn every layer, master every detail, and rise unrecognizable from who they were at the start. There's a famous female Scorpio author who once said, "When I'm writing a book, I become the book. I forget to eat. I lose track of time. But I also pour out something that's entirely real." And her novels, of course, have changed millions of lives. That's the gift of Scorpio's obsession. While others dabble, Scorpio immerses. They don't just date someone, they study them. They don't just start a business, they live it. That's why they excel in high-stakes environments: medicine, law, crisis management, deep research, even spiritual transformation. But this focus isn't always external. Many Scorpios use their intensity inward, transforming trauma into wisdom, shame into power, and fear into spiritual awakening. A Scorpio monk I once met had spent 10 years in silent retreat. When I asked him why, he said, "Because the only way to end the war in the world is to win the war within myself." Chills. From a spiritual view, Scorpio's focus reflects the Buddhist practice of samadhi, single-pointed concentration that leads to awakening. Few signs can focus like Scorpio. And when that focus is aligned with higher purpose, it's not just powerful, it's transcendent. So if you ever wonder why a Scorpio disappears for months only to return transformed, just know. They weren't lost. They were focused. And now, they're ready. Heart with arrow reason 7. Loyalty that cuts to the bone. There's loyalty, and then there's Scorpio loyalty. With other signs, loyalty might mean standing by someone when it's convenient. For Scorpio, it means bleeding for them without hesitation. When a Scorpio loves you, they don't just include you in their life. You become part of their identity. Their loyalty isn't casual, it's sacred, almost spiritual. But here's the paradox. Their loyalty is both their greatest gift and their deepest vulnerability. To love someone as a Scorpio is to open yourself to being destroyed. Because when they give, they don't hold back. They remember your childhood trauma, your late-night secrets, your darkest fears, and they hold them with the care of a priest guarding sacred scrolls. I once knew a Scorpio man named Caleb who stood by his wife through 7 years of infertility, 2 miscarriages, and the emotional fallout that came with it. He never wavered. He built her a garden when she couldn't get out of bed. He recorded lullabies for a child they hadn't yet conceived. And when the baby finally came, he cried in silence, because he had already been a father in his heart for years. That's the kind of loyalty Scorpio offers. Quiet, constant, and unwavering through the darkest of tunnels. But make no mistake, this loyalty is not blind. It's earned. And once it's betrayed, it doesn't bend, it breaks. And the pieces, once shattered, are rarely put back. Their loyalty is often misunderstood as intensity or even obsession. But in truth, it's a form of sacred commitment. From a Buddhist lens, it resembles Vajrayana devotion, the diamond path where one commits fully to a teacher, a truth, or a path, and walks it through fire without flinching. Scorpio's love is rare, and so is their loyalty. If you have it, cherish it. Because if you lose it, what comes next is something few survive unscathed. Scorpion reason 8. The sting of betrayal, and the power of Scorpio's revenge. No one carries betrayal like a Scorpio. While some signs move on with a sigh or a tear, Scorpio remembers. Not in bitterness, but in cellular memory. When you betray a Scorpio, it's not just an emotional wound. It's a soul injury. Because you didn't just break trust, you broke something sacred. But here's what most people don't realize. Scorpio's revenge isn't loud. It's not a screaming match or a dramatic exit. It's precision-crafted, deeply felt, and surgically executed. They don't act in the heat of the moment. They wait. They watch. And when the time comes, they make sure the lesson is unforgettable. Let me share the story of Serena, a Scorpio executive. She was undermined by her protege, a young colleague she had mentored for years, who leaked confidential information to secure her own promotion. Serena didn't confront her. Instead, she began tracking inconsistencies, quietly documented each breach, and nurtured allies across the company. Months later, during an executive restructure, Serena presented her findings to the board, not out of spite, but out of integrity. Her protege was dismissed. Serena was promoted. She didn't lash out. She simply outplayed her betrayer. This is the art of Scorpio retribution, cold, calculated, karmic. But Scorpio revenge isn't always external. Sometimes, their greatest revenge is transformation. They become so evolved, so successful, so at peace with themselves, that the betrayer is left haunted not by punishment, but by irrelevance. From a spiritual standpoint, this echoes the concept of karma vipaka in Buddhist teachings, the law of cause and effect. Scorpio doesn't need to force justice. They embody it. And when they do act, it's never from ego, but from a deep inner knowing that balance must be restored. Still, Scorpio doesn't seek revenge for sport. It's sacred balance. They're not vengeful by nature, but once wounded deeply, they become instruments of reckoning. So if you ever wonder whether a Scorpio will get over it, the answer is no, they'll get through it. And you'll know they did when you feel it in the silence. Crystal Ball Reason 9, the spiritual gateway, Scorpio's connection to life, death, and rebirth. Scorpio's ruling planet, Pluto, is the celestial guardian of death, transformation, and resurrection. While this may sound morbid to some, to a Scorpio, it's home. Death to a Scorpio is not the end. It's an invitation, a threshold. They're not afraid of what comes after because they've already experienced symbolic deaths in their own lives, painful transformations that shattered their ego, stripped away illusions, and forced them to rise from their own ashes. Think of a Scorpio woman who, after losing her spouse in a tragic accident, didn't retreat into bitterness. Instead, she spent the next 5 years studying grief therapy, eventually opening a free clinic for widows and children. That is Scorpio's spiritual journey, turning death into service. This connection to death isn't always literal. It's emotional, symbolic, spiritual. Scorpios are the ones who dive into the depths of despair and emerge with insights most can't even articulate. They walk among the wounded not as victims, but as guides. In Buddhist thought, there is a concept known as anicca, or impermanence, the idea that all things arise and pass away. Scorpio doesn't just understand this, they embody it. They have seen how everything can vanish in a blink, and because of that, they live with greater awareness, greater purpose, and a deeper sense of truth. This is why Scorpios are often drawn to mysticism, the occult, metaphysics, and esoteric philosophies. It's not fantasy for them, it's remembering. They're not afraid of what others avoid. They face what others deny, and that gives them a spiritual weight. When they speak about life, it's not from books, it's from the underworld. Person Lotus Position Reason 10. Intuitive intelligence, Scorpio's psychic sensitivity. Have you ever met someone who finished your sentence before you said it? Who called you exactly when you needed help? Who sensed a betrayal before any evidence existed? Chances are that person was a Scorpio. Their intuition goes beyond gut feelings. It's almost psychic. They often dream of events before they happen. They just know when something's wrong, and they're rarely wrong. But this sensitivity is not easy. It's overwhelming. Scorpio's internal world is like a storm of energy picking up emotional frequencies, undercurrents of fear, and spiritual shifts in the people around them. I knew a Scorpio healer named June who said she often felt people's pain in her own body. When her sister was going through a silent divorce, June began feeling chest tightness every night. She didn't know why until one day, her sister confessed she had been crying alone every evening, hiding it from everyone. June wasn't surprised. She had already felt it. This kind of intuitive power comes from Scorpio's stillness. While others seek answers in noise, Scorpio listens to silence. And in that silence, they hear what no one else can. In Buddhism, this is called prajna, wisdom that arises from inner clarity, not intellectual reasoning. Scorpio's intuitive mind is not based on facts, but on truths. They don't need proof because they perceive essence. But here's what makes their intuition even more powerful. They trust it. They don't second-guess their inner compass. And that faith in themselves allows them to navigate situations others get lost in. Of course, not all Scorpios embrace this gift early. Many are told they're too sensitive, too intense, or too emotional. So they hide their intuition. But eventually, after enough life, pain, and awakening, they stop hiding. And when they do, their insight becomes a force of nature. So when a Scorpio says, "I had a dream about you," don't laugh. Listen, because they may be delivering a message your soul has been trying to tell you. Fire reason 11. Unbreakable resilience, the strength that grows in darkness. If life were a storm, Scorpio wouldn't be the one hiding under shelter. They'd be walking headfirst into the rain, eyes open, skin burning, and yet never falling. Scorpio is the survivor of the zodiac. Not because life is easy for them, quite the opposite. It's because when life becomes unbearable, Scorpio doesn't collapse. They transform. Unlike others who avoid pain, Scorpios go straight into the fire. And they don't just survive it, they merge with it, emerging stronger. I once met a Scorpio woman named Rosa, who lost both parents within 6 months, suffered financial ruin, and was diagnosed with a chronic illness all in the same year. Most people would crumble. Rosa didn't. She cried, yes. She fell into silence for months. But when she returned, she had enrolled in a holistic medicine program, became certified, and started treating trauma survivors for free. I asked her how she managed. She said, "I died that year. But the version of me that rose was someone I didn't know I was capable of being." That is the core of Scorpio power, regeneration. They're like emotional alchemists, turning grief into grit, fear into fuel, destruction into destiny. In Buddhist teachings, we learn about dukkha, the suffering that is part of human life. Most run from it. But Scorpio? They stare it down, and in that process, they wake up. That's why spiritual awakening often happens fastest in this sign, because they don't avoid suffering. They understand it. They learn from it. And because of that, they become unbreakable. Tornado reason 12. The Phoenix effect, mastering the art of reinvention. There are signs that build a life and guard it carefully. Then there is Scorpio, who burns their life down when it no longer fits their soul. This is the most terrifying, awe-inspiring trait of all. Scorpio doesn't fear endings. In fact, they often initiate them. Jobs, friendships, identities, relationships, they will end it all if it no longer aligns with their inner truth. And yes, it's painful. Yes, it's lonely. But what emerges from that fire is breathtaking. There was once a Scorpio man named Theo. On paper, he had it all: 6-figure job, a family, prestige. But something inside him felt dead. So, over a year, he dismantled everything, left his corporate life, lived in solitude, meditated daily, and studied ancient texts. 5 years later, he returned, not as a businessman, but as a spiritual teacher. People asked, "Why throw it all away?" He replied, "I didn't throw it away. I traded success for soul." This is the Phoenix in motion. Scorpios don't transform just once. They do it again and again. Each time they shed a layer, it's painful, but necessary, because their soul refuses to stay small. From a spiritual lens, this mirrors the eightfold path, especially the principle of right effort, a conscious, courageous striving to cast off unwholesome habits and cultivate new ones. Scorpio embodies this effort in its purest form. While others fear change, Scorpio becomes it. And what's most powerful? Every rebirth brings them closer to truth, closer to peace, closer to purpose. So the next time you see a Scorpio walk away from everything they once built, don't pity them. Respect them, because they're not falling apart. They're rising. Shield reason 13. The fierce guardian, protecting those they love without fear. Scorpio is not loud about love. They don't shout it, flaunt it, or perform it. But if they love you, you are never alone, even when they're silent. Especially then. What makes Scorpio protection so profound is not its visibility, it's its depth. They will defend you even when you don't know you're in danger. They will stand between you and the storm, even if they never take credit. There's a story about a Scorpio high school teacher named Jared. One of his students, a quiet, soft-spoken girl, was being harassed by a group of boys. She never spoke up. She didn't think anyone noticed. But Jared did. He began observing. documenting, gathering silent proof. Then, one day, he walked into the principal's office, handed over a thick file, and within 48 hours, the issue was resolved, quietly, without scandal, without hurting the girl's dignity. She never even knew who exposed the truth. But he knew, and he never needed thanks. That is the Scorpio way. They don't just protect with their fists, they protect with their focus, their strategy, and their deep emotional insight. This protective instinct is not only toward people, it extends to truth, to integrity, to the vulnerable. Scorpios often find themselves standing up for the voiceless, the bullied, the abused. Not because it's noble, but because their soul demands it. In Buddhist thought, this is the spirit of metta, loving kindness that isn't soft, but courageous. Scorpios' love is like armor. They won't say, "I love you 10 times a day," but they'll fight for your safety behind the scenes. And if someone crosses you, Scorpio becomes a wall of fire. If you're ever protected by a Scorpio, know this. They would take a hit for you, without you ever knowing. Balance scale reason 14. Scorpio's inner code of justice. When they fight for what's right. Scorpio may be misunderstood as vengeful or cold, but underneath that intensity is something much more powerful, a deeply ingrained moral compass. To Scorpio, loyalty isn't blind. It's rooted in what is right. If they see injustice, cruelty, or manipulation, they will not stay silent. There's a difference between personal revenge and cosmic justice. And Scorpio understands both. But what makes their sense of justice so compelling is that they don't act from ego. They act from alignment. I once met a Scorpio police officer named Miguel, who refused to turn a blind eye when his own unit began covering up misconduct. He was pressured, threatened, even isolated. But he refused to betray his values. He said, "If I don't fight for justice, then I'm part of the injustice." Eventually, his testimony led to widespread reform in his department. He didn't do it for applause. He did it because he couldn't live any other way. This is the difference between Scorpio and many others. While some protect their reputation, Scorpio protects truth, even if it costs them everything. Spiritually, this reflects Sila in Buddhism, ethical conduct, the discipline to choose what is right over what is easy. Scorpio lives this silently, but powerfully. They don't wear morality like a badge. They become it, especially in moments when it would be easier to walk away. But their code is strict. Once you violate it, especially by lying, betraying, or abusing power, you're done. Scorpio doesn't hand out second chances like candy. And if they see you hurting others, they will stop you. Their justice isn't just about punishment, it's about balance. Restoring what was broken, correcting what was bent. So if you're ever blessed to have a Scorpio fight on your behalf, just know, they're not doing it for you alone. They're doing it for everyone who needed someone to fight back. Milky Way reason 15. Scorpio's connection to symbols, synchronicity, and hidden meaning. While some people move through life seeing coincidences, Scorpios see messages. To them, nothing is truly random. A sudden chill in the room, a repeating number, an unexpected animal appearing twice in 1 week. These are not just chance. They are signals from something deeper. Call it the universe. Call it fate. Call it the soul speaking. Scorpio listens. They see what others miss. Why? Because they are ruled by the 8th house in astrology, the house of mysteries, secrets, and hidden forces. It gives Scorpio a radar for the invisible. They notice the subtext, the patterns, the emotional residue left behind after words are spoken. I once knew a Scorpio graphic designer named Mira who could look at a client's brand idea and immediately feel whether the concept was off. Not because of design principles, but because the symbolism didn't match the soul of the message. She often redesigned logos intuitively, using animal imagery, sacred geometry, and color theory in ways that clients later discovered matched ancient traditions by accident. But to Mira, it was never accidental. That's the magic of Scorpio. They're symbolic thinkers in a literal world. And from a Buddhist lens, this reflects the concept of upaya, skillful means. Scorpio uses intuition and symbolic insight to teach, heal, and create. They don't argue about what's logical. They reveal what's meaningful. This is why so many Scorpios are drawn to tarot, astrology, dream interpretation, spiritual philosophy, and even ancient cultures. It's not escapism, it's resonance. The deeper the symbol, the more truth they feel. So the next time a Scorpio says, "I keep seeing crows lately," pay attention. They might be receiving a message, not just for them, but for you. ZZZ Reason 16. Dream world sensitivity, visions, premonitions, and psychic sleep. Scorpio's connection to the dream world is legendary. While many people forget their dreams within minutes, Scorpios often live in theirs. They dream vividly, symbolically, emotionally, and often prophetically. Their dreams are not just mental static. They are journeys, messages, sometimes even warnings. It's not uncommon for a Scorpio to wake up and say, "Something's wrong with my brother," and later that day, a crisis unfolds. Or to dream of someone they haven't seen in years, only to receive a message from that person hours later. This isn't woo-woo. This is energy literacy. Scorpios feel what others don't. And when their conscious mind shuts off in sleep, their intuitive system goes fully online. There was a story shared by a spiritual counselor about a Scorpio woman named Talia. For 3 nights, she dreamt of drowning. On the 4th night, she dreamt of her cousin, a marine biologist, trapped under ice. She called him the next morning. He had just been rescued after falling into icy water during a research dive. Coincidence? Maybe. Or maybe, a Scorpio dreamt the truth before it reached the surface. What gives Scorpio this power? It's their ability to surrender into the subconscious. While others resist vulnerability during sleep, Scorpio enters it. They allow dreams to guide, inform, even transform. From a Buddhist point of view, this aligns with yogic dream practices, awareness within dreaming, sometimes called lucid dreaming, where one learns lessons, sees karmic patterns, and even heals in the dream state. Scorpio, knowingly or not, often lives this path. Their dreams are intense, yes, but they are also maps, emotional blueprints, karmic whispers. And when a Scorpio learns to trust this inner night vision, it becomes their compass. One that leads not just to survival, but to wisdom. Reason 17. Emotional endurance, Scorpio's strength in crisis. Scorpios don't just survive hard times, they guide others through them. When a crisis hits, most people collapse emotionally. Anxiety spikes, tempers flare, decisions become erratic. But Scorpio becomes unervingly calm. Their eyes narrow, their voice quiets, and their energy drops into a grounded, unwavering core. Why? Because they've likely lived through multiple inner deaths already. They've lost people, dreams, beliefs, and rebuilt themselves over and over. So when life starts falling apart, a Scorpio doesn't flinch. They assess, they stabilize, they lead. Take the story of Katrina, a Scorpio trauma counselor in war-torn Syria. During bomb raids, while others panicked, she'd gather injured civilians, administer medical care, organize supplies, and do it in total silence. Her coworkers said, "It was like she became more alive the closer death got. She gave us courage when we had none." That's emotional endurance. It's not about suppressing pain. It's about having already faced it, processed it, and forged resilience from it. From a Buddhist lens, this is a form of equanimity, upekkha, a calm, balanced state of mind in the face of joy or suffering. Scorpio embodies this when they've fully integrated their shadow. They don't resist the storm. They become the eye of it. Person in lotus position, reason 18. Spiritual grounding, calm in chaos, rooted in self. If you've ever seen a Scorpio sit in total stillness during a moment of emotional chaos, you'll understand this power. Scorpio doesn't always speak. They don't always react. Because they're rooted, not in ego, but in awareness. Unlike other water signs that may get swept away in the tide of emotion, Scorpio is the deepest ocean trench, still, silent, and powerful beyond measure. A Scorpio monk I once met, named Ajahn Covey, was known for meditating beside dying patients in rural Thailand. He didn't chant. He didn't advise. He simply sat. And people said they felt peace, just being near him. One man whispered before passing. His silence said what no one else could, that I'm not alone. That's the spiritual grounding of Scorpio. They hold pain, fear, and death, not with panic, but presence. In astrology, Scorpio is fixed water, emotional depth fused with unshakable stillness. This gives them unmatched capacity for holding space, whether it's for grieving loved ones, unraveling therapy clients, or a friend having a breakdown. They don't rush to solve. They sit with it. and that is healing. Spiritually, Scorpio can become a Vajra, a thunderbolt symbol in Vajrayana Buddhism representing unbreakable truth and indestructible compassion. They can be fierce and soft, silent and present, all at once. So in the middle of chaos, if you ever find yourself with a Scorpio, let their calm anchor you, because they've been here before, and they're not afraid. Compass Reason 19. Transformational leadership, the power to influence from the inside out. Some people lead with charisma, others with intellect. But Scorpio leads with something far more powerful, presence. They don't have to command attention, it happens naturally. Their emotional intelligence, intensity, and ability to read people make them born influencers, especially in one-on-one or small group dynamics. Unlike other leaders who bark orders or rely on performance, Scorpio guides people by transforming them from within. They dig into your truth, confront your shadows, and challenge you to become someone bigger than your fear. There's a Scorpio coach named Elias who worked with recovering addicts. He didn't use scripts. He looked people in the eye and said things like, "You're not broken, but if you lie to yourself again, you'll die." And people listened, not because he was loud, but because his truth was undeniable. He didn't preach recovery. He embodied it. That's the Scorpio path, real, raw, and transformational. In Buddhism, this is like the Kalyamita, the spiritual friend who doesn't flatter you, but awakens you. Scorpio plays that role without needing the title of teacher. Their life is the teaching. And in leadership, Scorpio doesn't need to compete. They observe. They understand power from within, not from hierarchy. Their quiet confidence makes others speak more carefully, think more deeply, and feel seen in ways they never have before. So when Scorpio rises, they bring others with them. Seedling Reason 20. Healing through depth. Scorpio's sacred role as a soul mirror. Scorpios don't just live through pain. They learn its language. And once they do, they can read it in you, even when you can't name it yourself. This is what makes them such powerful healers, therapists, artists, and spiritual guides. Their own wounds have become maps. Their own betrayals have become blueprints. So when someone is lost in darkness, Scorpio doesn't offer platitudes. They enter the cave with you, and then they show you the exit. A Scorpio healer I knew named Raquel told me, "When someone cries in front of me, I don't wipe their tears. I hold the silence around them until they remember who they are." That is sacred healing. Not fixing, not saving, mirroring your soul back to you. In Buddhist teachings, this reflects Maitri, the loving kindness that begins with radical self-awareness. Scorpio has walked through so much shadow that they no longer fear it in others. And that's what heals. They don't offer shallow comfort. They offer deep truth. And that truth becomes medicine. This is why so many people say, after talking to a Scorpio, I feel like I just woke up. Because you have. They pulled you out of denial, out of numbness, out of your small story. Not because they wanted control, but because they saw your power before you did. Scorpio isn't here just to live. They're here to evolve and to help others do the same. Cyclone Final Reflection, the sacred mission of Scorpio. Scorpio begins life as the scorpion, defensive, wounded, fierce. But as they grow, they become the eagle, watchful, clear, and wise. And eventually, they become the phoenix, burned, reborn, and radiant with divine purpose. Their pain becomes their path. Their silence becomes their strength. Their presence becomes their legacy. So if you are a Scorpio, own your depth. If you love a Scorpio, respect their journey. And if you meet a Scorpio on your path, listen, because somewhere inside their story is the wisdom your soul has been waiting for. New Moon Reason 21. Shadow Mastery. Scorpio's ability to integrate. Most people run from their darkness. Scorpio? They study it. This is not about being edgy or deep. It's about true PSYC. Scorpio has the rare gift of turning shadow into strength without letting it rot their spirit. Instead of pretending to be all light, they own their darkness, and by doing so, they gain power over it. They don't suppress jealousy, they investigate it. They don't hide their rage, they understand it. They don't fake perfection, they reveal wholeness. This is why Scorpio has so much gravity. Because unlike others, they don't split off their dark side, they befriended it. And when you meet someone who has integrated their shadow, you feel it. You trust them. Because they're no longer controlled by ego, they've seen their ugliness and loved themselves anyway. From a Buddhist lens, this mirrors the practice of vipassana, or insight meditation, noticing the contents of the mind with clarity, without judgment. Scorpio does this naturally. They look at their shadow as a teacher, not a threat. That's why a healed Scorpio is not just powerful, they're magnetic. Because when you're around them, you don't feel judged. You feel safe to be whole. Glowing star reason 22. Soul awakening, Scorpio's power to activate transformation in others. Scorpio doesn't just awaken themselves. They awaken you. There's something about being around a fully awakened Scorpio that feels otherworldly. Not because they're loud, but because their energy holds a mirror to your truth. You can't hide around them. You can't fake it. They see you. And when they speak, they hit right at the core. Why are you still running from your gift? You're grieving something you haven't admitted yet. What would you become if you weren't afraid? Simple words. But Scorpio says them like a soul whispering through the veil. That's their final gift. They carry frequency. Their presence alone triggers awakenings. Not because they preach, but because they've walked the path. They don't offer you their map. They remind you that you have your own. In Tibetan Buddhism, there is a concept known as terma, hidden spiritual treasures that are only revealed when the time is right. Scorpio people are often living termas, beings who carry spiritual depth inside them that others discover only when they're ready. And when a Scorpio helps you awaken, your life changes. Forever. Beating heart reason 23. Unconditional love. When Scorpio loves without possession. Scorpios are often associated with obsessive love. But what few realize is that a fully awakened Scorpio loves in the purest way possible, without needing to own. This kind of love only comes after transformation. When Scorpio has faced their jealousy, attachment, fear of loss, they let go of the need to possess. What's left is astonishing. A love that says, "You are free, and I will still love you. I don't need to keep you. I need you to be whole." It's not easy for Scorpio to get here. But once they do, their love becomes healing. There's a story of a Scorpio man named Luca whose partner left him to follow her calling abroad. Instead of fighting to keep her, he helped her pack. He kissed her goodbye. And he told her, "If your path is brighter away from me, go. I'll always be the one cheering from the shadows." That is love beyond ego. From a Buddhist lens, this is the embodiment of upeksha, equanimous love, a form of non-attached compassion that wants happiness for the other, even when that doesn't include us. And when Scorpio arrives here, their love no longer burns. It radiates. Muted speaker reason 24. The power of presence, Scorpio's influence without words. The most powerful Scorpios often say the least. They walk into a room and everything changes, not because of their words, but because of their energy. Their presence speaks louder than speeches. Their silence carries more depth than paragraphs. And their gaze? It reveals what others spend years hiding. This is not manipulation. It's awakened stillness. It's a soul that has gone through so many fires that now it no longer reacts. It sees. I once met a Scorpio elder named Aniko who sat in silence during an entire retreat. But after the third day, people started sitting closer to her. They didn't know why. One woman said, "Just being near her made me feel like I remembered who I am." Scorpio at this stage becomes a mirror. Not one that flatters you, one that returns you to your essence. In Vajrayana Buddhism, there's an idea of the guru not as a teacher, but as a frequency, someone whose vibration transmits truth just by being. This is Scorpio when they have mastered themselves. They don't convince. They don't chase. They simply are. And in that being, others rise. Milky Way reason 25. Cosmic channel, Scorpio's ability to align with universal intelligence. Scorpio doesn't just follow the universe. When awakened, they channel it. They become so attuned to energy, emotion, symbolism, and soul vibration that they start moving in perfect sync with something greater than themselves. This doesn't look like magic tricks. It looks like deep, intuitive timing. Like being in the right place, saying the right thing at the right moment, without planning it. Many spiritual leaders, healers, and even revolutionaries were Scorpios or had strong Scorpio placements. Not because they were mystical, but because they could feel truth before it had words. I met a Scorpio poet named Kale who often wrote lines months before global events echoed them. He said, "I don't write what I think. I write what I feel is already on its way." This is cosmic alignment. Scorpio becomes a bridge not between people, but between spirit and form. In Buddhist philosophy, this mirrors sunyata, the realization of emptiness, where one no longer acts from ego but as an instrument of wisdom and compassion. At this stage, Scorpio doesn't push. They allow. They don't force answers. They listen for what's already true. And when they act, it feels like fate itself moved. Fire reason 26. Sacred mission. Scorpio's unshakable devotion to their soul purpose. Once Scorpio finds their soul purpose, nothing can stop them. No distraction, no fear, no rejection, no loneliness. Because they don't choose the path, they are claimed by it. This is not about career or status. It's about devotion. Scorpio understands that they were born with a contract, something they came here to transform, protect, awaken, or destroy so that something new could rise. And once they remember it, they live it like a warrior monk. There was a Scorpio woman named Soraya who worked in trauma recovery for abused children. She was once a victim herself, but instead of being defined by it, she made it her life's sacred work. When asked how she found the strength, she said, "Because my pain has a purpose now, and as long as I breathe, I'll make sure no child walks through that pain alone." That is Scorpio's sacred mission. It's not for applause, not for validation, but because their souls signed up for this. In Buddhist terms, this is Bodhisattva vow, the promise to return again and again until all beings are free from suffering. And Scorpio, at their highest, lives this vow without even needing to say it. The reason 27. Inner freedom, Scorpio's mastery of letting go. Scorpios begin life gripping tightly to people, emotions, memories, even betrayals. But through transformation, they learn the greatest paradox of all. Freedom comes from letting go. Letting go of needing to be understood. Letting go of needing revenge. Letting go of roles they outgrew, identities that expired, and love that no longer serves the soul. When a Scorpio reaches this place, they become untouchable, not cold, but clear. Their power no longer comes from what they hold, but from what they've released. There was once a Scorpio named Harlan who walked away from a high-profile spiritual organization because it became ego-driven. His peers begged him to stay and fight from within. But Harlan simply said, "I'd rather be true and alone than supported in something false." He let go. And in that letting go, he became limitless. This is the essence of moksha, liberation from ego and illusion. Scorpio, when evolved, doesn't just understand this concept. They live it. Their silence no longer hides pain. It radiates peace. Fire reason 28. Empowering others to rise. Scorpio's role as a catalyst for freedom. The final form of Scorpio's power is non-possession. They ignite others, then let them fly. They don't want to be your savior. They want to be your spark. After walking their own hell and back, they know that true healing is not dependency, it's empowerment. And so, they plant seeds of awakening, then step back. Because the goal isn't control, it's freedom. There's a story of a Scorpio therapist who worked with trauma survivors. After 5 sessions, one woman begged to continue. "Please don't leave me yet. You're the only one who gets it." He smiled and said, "That's exactly why I have to let you go. You already know the way. You just needed someone to remind you." This is Scorpio's highest role, the fire starter, not the flame keeper. From a Buddhist view, this is the heart of non-attachment and right relationship. Help others, yes. Love them, yes. But never own their path. Scorpio, in their final form, doesn't seek power over others. They awaken power within them. And then, they walk away. Not because they don't care, but because they trust the soul they've touched is ready to rise. Reason 29. Soul imprint. Scorpio changes you at a cellular level. To meet a Scorpio is to meet a part of yourself you've been avoiding. They don't just interact, they penetrate. They don't just hear, you speak differently around them. You feel seen in ways that surprise you, challenged in ways that change you. This is because Scorpio doesn't relate through surface layers. They go to your core. And whether they stay in your life for 10 years or 10 minutes, they leave you different. A student once said of her Scorpio mentor, "He didn't teach me answers. He taught me how to never lie to myself again." That's Scorpio's legacy. They may disappear. They may go silent. But their words, their energy, it lingers. In your decisions, in your healing, in your silence. And one day, when you face something hard, you'll hear their voice in your mind say, "You already have the strength. Now use it." That's how you know a Scorpio touched your soul. Cyclone reason 30. Eternal mystery. You'll never fully understand them. And that's the point. Even after everything, after all the insight, closeness, and transformation, you'll never fully understand a Scorpio. And that's exactly why you'll never forget them. They are walking paradoxes. Still but intense. Loving but detached. Wounded but invincible. Present but already gone. Trying to define them is like trying to bottle a storm. You can describe it, feel it, be changed by it, but you'll never own it. And truthfully, that mystery is sacred. Because in a world obsessed with explaining everything, Scorpio teaches us the value of the unexplainable, the power of not knowing, the wisdom of still feeling. This is why Scorpio's presence lingers long after they're gone, not as a puzzle, but as a reminder of something ancient, holy, and alive within you. Sparkle's final words to every Scorpio and to those who love them. You are not intense. You are honest. You are not too much. You are what truth feels like when it walks into a room. You were never meant to be understood. You were meant to be remembered. So to every Scorpio listening, keep rising, keep burning, keep becoming the firelight others don't yet know they're searching for. Megaphone, a gentle invitation from the path to Buddhist wisdom. If you felt seen, moved, or awakened by this journey through the Scorpio soul, I invite you to walk deeper with us. Sparkles, subscribe to the path to Buddhist wisdom, where we blend zodiac insight with ancient spiritual truth for souls who don't just want answers, but awakening. Man, a lotus position like this video if it resonated. Speech balloon comment if you've ever loved a Scorpio or been one. Bell and hit the bell icon so you never miss the light in the dark. Remember, you're not here by accident. This message found you for a reason.